But, you know, what was actually on my mind and what I did miss was talking about the quarterback. And I was hanging out with, let's name drop here. I was hanging out with my good buddies Nick Wright and Danny Parkins in New York. I think maybe some people saw those photos. So we started talking at dinner late night, one or two cocktails in, about what a successful season looks for Caleb Williams. And, you know, look, I'm like, I've been saying up to this point, be a lot better at the end of the year than you are at the start of the year. I'm not going to worry about numbers. I'm not going to worry about wins. I'm not going to worry about playoff wins. I'm not going to worry about any of that. But I do think the reality of the situation is that there are some real numbers and some real accomplishments that have been put out by two quarterbacks, that I think we can look as measuring sticks. Now, the two quarterbacks that I'm picking are, of course, CJ Stroud, offensive rookie of the year, led a team that nearly was the worst in all of football, or arguably the worst in all of football the year prior, with Tank Dell that no one had ever heard of, and now was a household name. And CJ, just had a phenomenal year. 4,108 yards, 23 touchdowns. This doesn't jump off the page, but only 5 interceptions does. He only had 2 games under 150 yards throwing the entire season. 140 versus Carolina. They lost 15-13. He was sacked twice in that game, didn't throw a pick, didn't throw a touchdown. He had a 91-yard game in their worst loss of the season to the Jets, 30-6. He was 10 for 23. But then on the plus side, right, he throws 470 yards, 5 touchdowns against the Bucs, last-minute drive to win it, 75 yards in 40 seconds. Okay, you beat Tampa, no big deal, even though that's a big deal. And then the next week, he follows it up, 356, beats the Bengals. What's up, Joe Burrow? Another last-minute drive to win it. D'Amico Ryans talking about him after that game, the calmness in the chaos. I mean, these are things that we hear about Caleb, right? They go to the playoffs. They beat the Browns. That's not that impressive, but it's still a playoff win. Joe Flacco, whatever, still a playoff win. And, okay, they lose to the Ravens. That's the end of the season. Like, that bar being put out last year is something that Caleb's going to be compared to all season long. And the other guy that I look at, who it's totally different, but I think similar, it's another guy who threw for 4,100 plus yards, 4,159, and that's Jordan Love. Now, he had the benefit of sitting. We all know this, but the dude came in and immediately was very good. 32 touchdowns against only 11 interceptions. That's another guy who went to the playoffs, won a playoff game. It's completed 76% of his passes in said playoff game, threw 3 touchdown passes. And then, the Packers nearly got by the Niners, your Super Bowl, the whole thing. And I think those two, I think you're going to be looking in the division. How's he matching up against this young quarterback up there? We saw it, he threw 3 touchdown passes against the Bears in week 1 last year, Jordan Love. We want to just start at the beginning, and Bears fans I didn't want to admit that, oh my God, this guy looks real. But we saw, and I know this is long-winded, Greg, but we saw him like standing back there in the pocket and calmness in the chaos. Jordan Love had it instantly. He's flicking touchdown passes.
Right.
So those are 2 guys that you can really look at, Gregory. I don't agree or disagree, as kind of markers for what would be considered a successful season for Caleb in year 1.
Well, yeah, those are the top end markers, right? And Caleb, CJ Stroud did that in 15 games. Jordan had 17, but both certainly high markers, especially going into the playoffs and winning a playoff game. And I think if we would have added Brock Purdy into this discussion too, I think he came in at a halfway point of the season, but he's also somebody who came in right away and became a difference maker. And what do all 3 of these guys have in common? Maybe not so much with the Packers, but playmakers all around them, good play callers behind them. And when Matt Eberflus talked the other day about what the key is to making sure that Caleb Williams has a good rookie season, he said, he wants him to play point guard, but it's about play calling and putting Caleb Williams in the best position possible to deliver the football to the guys that are special and go let them be special. Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus both talked about that. San Francisco 49ers are loaded with talent. So when they drop a quarterback in there, they don't miss a beat. Sam Darnold got in there last year and they were moving the football, right? So you put this team that you have, all this talent around Caleb Williams. The question is, what can Shane Waldron do for Caleb Williams? And so those are the high bar examples. Now, if you take it down to a Bears example of the couple different quarterbacks that have come in and have had good years or better than what we're used to here in Chicago years, the bar is so much lower, right? So we're like trying to find that happy medium of the top end expectations of CJ Stroud and then the low end expectations of just at least be better than the quarterbacks that have been here, right? So if you look at Mitch Trubisky's numbers in 2018, no, it wasn't his rookie year, but it was a first-year offense under Matt Nagy. And in 14 games, 3,223 yards, 24 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 95.4. The team went 12-4 with a really good defense. They made the playoffs. We all know what happened. 66.6% completion percentage. And I saw Brendan Shagru was on with my guy Adam Rank, and they were talking about this. Like, are those numbers good enough for if he hit those numbers, would you deem that a successful season? And I thought it was an interesting question, especially when you consider that was only in 14 games. If Mitch had played 16, maybe he gets past the 3,500 yard marker. Because for me, if Caleb's able to have 3,500 plus yards, around 25 or more touchdowns, and less than 15 interceptions, that to me is, without any context of how and when and why, like that's where we want to go. Of course, I think he's capable of much more than that. But I also am trying to be reasonable in my expectations, even though I do think this guy is a gamer. Now, if we go to the most talented quarterback of my lifetime here in Chicago and go to Jay Cutler's first year here in Chicago, a guy that came in with a resume, came in as a Pro Bowler, tons of hype, unbelievable hype when he came in. We threw a freaking parade when we traded for Jay Cutler. 16 games played, 60% completion percentage in his first year with the Bears. 3,666 yards, 27 touchdowns, but 26 interceptions with a quarterback rating of 76.8, and the whole thing burned down in flames. The team went 7-9 after, I think, having a 9-7 season the year before and just missing the playoffs with Kyle Orton. So Jay Cutler had unbelievable talent, and he hit his crescendo with the Bears. He eventually showed all the talent that he had and started to minimize those mistakes. And I do think there is a little bit of Cutler in Caleb Williams in that he is uber talented, unbelievable arm talent, but is going to make mistakes at times because he's going to try to fit throws into NFL windows that he has to learn whether or not are acceptable risks to take. And that's a learning curve a lot of rookies have to go through. And it's just a matter of how much of that learning curve is he going to learn to holster that back. I don't think it's going to be 26 interceptions, but that's why I said 15 or less picks. The fumbles are certainly something we have to monitor. They haven't been an issue here at camp or in the preseason, but it was an issue for Caleb at USC. So how many turnovers do you have, right? Try to keep that number of touchdowns 25 or over, but more importantly, let's not get those turnovers to 20 or over, because now we're talking about a guy that's playing reckless and not playing, under control, which is what a point guard should be doing.
So, and that I like where you ended that. And by the way, amazing job pulling in the graphics there, Gregory. You're on your game. I find
Steven is the one that made the graphics, so we're going to give our guy the credit that he is due. But yes, me and Steven been working hard in the lab this morning trying to make sure everybody can get the visuals that they deserve here on the CHGO Bears podcast.
Well, let me give you one from the Carm clan where there is no visual, but the guy that I looked up, I don't know, Gregory, where do you rank Joe Burrow in your pantheon of NFL quarterbacks right now? You don't even have to answer it.
Top five, top five, right?
Top five. Top five good enough. Burrow gets a little complicated because if you're somebody who loves him, you'll put him all the way up to 2. And if you're somebody that's worried about a quarterback getting hurt, you actually might drop him out of the top 5, even though he is, when healthy, I don't think it's even an argument that he's actually top 3 if he's healthy. But Burrow, got hurt his first year.
Right.
And he, of course, they get to go to the Super Bowl the next year, but his first season, he lost a lot of tough games. 31-27 to the Colts, 37-34 to the Cleveland Browns, 35-30 to the Cleveland Browns again, right? He didn't throw for under 183 yards in any game. 183 was his worst. That was in a 27-3 loss to Baltimore. He had 5 games, 300 or more, including a 406 in the Browns loss. And he ends up this season with 13 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 2,688 yards. This is a guy that people, when healthy, would absolutely kill for. And his first season was a little bit wonky. I don't know. My point is this: a lot of wide-ranging possibilities here for what a successful season would look like. But the bar has been raised, I think, because of what CJ did last year.
A lot of rookie quarterbacks here in the last 10 years, right? Kyler Murray, our guy down in Jacksonville, that came in with the high prodigy status. So
sure, Trevor was there too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think the college quarterbacks are more capable of being ready quicker than in the past.
Steven, while we wait for Potsy, rumor has it you have a comp in the quarterback room that you want to throw out there.
I do, and this might be a little bit of a surprising one. It's Baker Mayfield. So he did these numbers in only 14 games, 13 starts, 27 TDs, 14 interceptions. So what really stands out here is that number is the 27 TDs. Only 4 QBs, rookie QBs in NFL history have ever thrown for 26 or more TDs in a season. That's Peyton Manning with 26, Russell Wilson with 26, Baker Mayfield listed here, and then Justin Herbert has the record at 31. I want to see Caleb become the 5th quarterback to hit that benchmark.
26.
And I think if he does that, we're looking at this as a very successful season for both Caleb Williams and the Bears.
Well, and Baker Mayfield, and as I mentioned earlier, Kyler Murray, 2 quarterbacks that were successful in their rookie year, and 2 quarterbacks that come from the same college system, same college coaches that Caleb Williams had under him.
The point of this whole segment, the bar is high, and I'm going to point that out, but I'm also going to try to be realistic about it at the same time. Y'all silly like the man.